Hello, welcome inside another edition of the Scores Table. Brian Hench and Danny Rego here with you. It's sectional championship Saturday, and my God, Danny, this tournament it just keeps delivering the drama, the intrigue, the surprises. I mean, it's nonstop.
Yeah, I think it's hard to win a sectional.
Yeah,
like I don't mean to be like too simple about it, but it's really difficult to win a sectional. It's difficult to win a sectional game. It's difficult to win a sectional. So you get these matchups at the beginning, and it's like, oh, well, these two teams are going to play on Saturday night. This team's going to win. You start talking about regional matchups, and then you just find out that you should let these kids play it out because things are going to happen. But for those that won tonight, congratulations, because it's hard.
Big story of the night. First, I should mention the guest list tonight. We're going to be joined by Keke Butler of Lawrence North, which we'll mention here in a second. Alonna Devine, Komari Booker of Pike. Richie Hall from the Hamilton County Reporter. He was up watching the Sheridan Lapel game. Sheridan moving on. Grace Opinker from NWI.com is up in the region covering. She had Lake Central tonight and their loss. Kyle Sokeland of the Evansville Courier and Press at night. He got another overtime thriller tonight with Gibson Southern and then Evansville Reitz playing. But Danny, I think the big story in the lead tonight is obviously what Lawrence North did, taking out their in-township rival, 47-42 win over the defending 4A champions Lawrence North. Snaps a 5-game losing streak within the series, that Lawrence North win over LC. And just for as badly as that regular season game went, I mean, just what a gutsy, impressive response by the Wildcats.
Yeah, that was the story of the night. Just people were talking. We were at sectional 8, right? Hank sitting right next to each other, and that was what people were like asking us, like, what's the Lawrence Central score? What's the Lawrence North score? Who's up? Who's got the ball? Who's this? Who's that? So yeah, all eyes were on that one. Yeah, Lawrence North. I mean, I can't wait to talk to Keke.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll bring Keke here on in just a second as she gets settled in. What else jumps out to you, Danny? I'll let you take it here for a couple seconds while I tweet out the link to the show.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to the beginning. So let's just, like the sectional that we were at, and we'll get into it at the end. But, I made the mistake, me personally made the mistake of just prognosticating a Noblesville versus HSE Saturday night matchup. So obviously what happened last night with Westfield upsetting Noblesville, you then look at an HSE Westfield matchup, and then I had the natural tendency to look at the score in the regular season and what happened in that game. I was in attendance at that game. And then here you are in the first half, and HSE is down 11. Like, I use that as just one gigantic example to say that's the number one team in the state. That's the highest ranked nationally team that we have. And it took every bit of it to get out of that sectional. And so I think just a global thought, as we were texting around and getting score updates from this gym or that gym or whatever, it was always a moment of surprise. Like, oh, this team is down. So Silver Creek, for example, to Corning Central is down 8 going into the fourth quarter or whatever it is. So I think just a sweeping generalization that it is very, very difficult. And if you look at the teams that have already been eliminated, I think that really shows how much those teams that won should be celebrating tonight.
We're going to bring on Keke Butler now. Keke Butler played a starring role in what was the biggest win of the season for the Cats, maybe the biggest upset of I wouldn't say the tournament so far, but certainly the biggest upset of the night. Keke, I guess just for starters, I'll start broad. How does it feel? What's it like to finally get over that hump and take down Lawrence Central?
It feels good because they beat us a lot, but we got them back when it mattered, so that's all I can say.
So what was the difference tonight? Like, what allowed you guys to finally get over this hump and to break through against them?
Well, first, it all starts in practice. We practiced very hard. As games went on, we played a lot of different teams. We figured out kind of how to shut other teams down, and all we realized that we had to do was, instead of, when we played kicker the last couple games, we were kind of lazy, sloping around. We didn't really communicate a lot. So these last couple weeks, we've been working on communicating, sprinting everywhere, getting a lot of shots up, and trusting each other, playing hard, just little stuff that we needed to work on. So,
was there a moment for you guys when things kind of flipped, like during practice? Because after the LC lost the last time, they kind of felt like rock bottom. Lost by 20, 30 points. It kind of felt like a low point as an outsider. Is that how it felt in there? And what did you guys do to turn it around?
It did sting a little bit because it was like our fifth one, but we figured out like that loss helped us figure out what we needed to get better at and what we needed to work on in the future because we knew we were going to see them again. We knew it was going to be either us or them, so we knew we had to get the job done.
Keke, congratulations. I can't. I'm gonna have to try to find the game and watch it. It's something that is I'll be excited to watch. But from a strategic standpoint, when you lose the way that you lost the last time you played Lawrence Central at home, it kind of reset you a little bit that you could, as I was talking to Steven tonight, almost push all your chips in the center of the circle and go all in. It seems like just from the things that Steven had kind of said to me and some of the texts that were coming out, you guys played a defense tonight that you guys hadn't really run the entire season and just kind of dropped it on Lawrence Central. And that apparently was one of the differences and difference makers in the game. Without giving away the trade secrets, can you just talk about, the new zone and how energized you guys were to try something new in this game?
Well, kicker wasn't really new. It was just about us communicating, like us not being lazy, us figuring out what spots to put everybody in, and how we were going to set it up versus when we played LC. Like the first time we played LC this season, we only lost by one. We ran kicker that time, but we wasn't really sprinting how we should have been. So then over the time, especially after the second loss, we realized like kicker did work. We just weren't sprinting. We wasn't like talking about who we had on each side, and we was constantly having a problem with having two on the ball. So we changed it up a little bit by starting one of us guarding the primary ball handler up court, and then the other one stand on the opposite side that I forced the guard to go to, which helped because then we both know our sides, we both know who to kick, and we really had to pay attention to who we had in our area. That was another big part of making sure that we was running it right, was making sure we knew who was in our area, who the shooters were, and rebounding as well.
And kicker is what you call that zone internally, right?
Yep.
Okay. So sorry, Steven, you have to rename kicker. That's my bad.
What kind of zone is it? Is it like a 1-3-1 or what is it that you guys ran?
It's a 2-3, but like it's like the top two people have like free throw line and above basically, and the back line has free throw line and under. But basically, like if you're at the top, like for example, if somebody's on the wing, if somebody else was in the corner, the top guard would close out to there, kick the bottom person down to the person in the corner, and then from there it's just matching up.
Yeah, good for you guys. One of the things that we had talked about, Keke, and covering some other games and covering the tournament are the role players that step up in big times. Brooklyn Roberts came in tonight and had 3 big threes. Talk about her and the role that she had played and how comfortable she's gotten kind of throughout the year.
Well, she's had some ups and downs, but these last couple games, she's been shooting 50 and above from the 3-point line. So, I mean, we get a lot of shots up after practice. There's been times where me and her have just stayed and shot till probably 8 o'clock at night. She works on that type of stuff, so I wasn't really surprised. I mean, it was normal to me.
And just one last one for me before I give it back to Hank. I mean, I just kind of want to ask just about just the rivalry and just kind of what the win means for you. It just seemed like you guys you're knocking on the door. Can you put into your own words what a sectional title means, but also a sectional title with a win over the defending state champs, at home? I mean, what's that mean to you?
It meant a lot as far as like after we won, it just took so much relief off of like my chest. Like I was just happy because it was like a lot of people expected us to lose that game, and like it just feels good to prove like almost everybody who doubted us wrong. Like,
Did it help not having those expectations, being kind of the underdogs and having people not overlooking you but doubting you?
yeah, because I feel like it made us thrive. It made us work a lot harder. Like, we just we took it and used it in a positive way. Like, we didn't let it bring us down. We didn't really care what people had to say. We was just like, let's just prove them wrong with what we could do on the court. That's really pretty much all you could do.
So looking ahead now, you get Pendleton Heights and obviously Casey Warfel and Ada Hupfer, the two big names there, Olivia Jones as well. How much do you know about them? Have you played with or against any of those girls before?
I've played with Ada in the Prep Ball Stars League. I know her for sure. I don't think I've played with the other person.
Okay, so let's talk about Ada. Obviously, you kind of a unique weapon there down in the post. Are you looking forward to playing against her?
Yeah, she was pretty solid when we played against her, when we did our little open runs thing.
That's cool. That's cool. So how long are you guys allowed to enjoy this before you start looking ahead to regionals? Is it just for the tonight and tomorrow?
Yeah, just for tonight and tomorrow. Then we got to be on to the next.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, congratulations, Keke. We're both so happy for you guys, and congrats and best of luck here moving forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keke. As Keke Butler of Lawrence North following the Cats win over Lawrence Central. They took down the Bears 47-42. One quick thought from you, Danny, and then we'll move on to Pike.
That's a huge upset. Okay, it is, and I understand in Lawrence County it probably plays differently, but that is a huge upset. Lawrence Central won the state championship and won the state championship last year relatively easily. Okay, because of one loss on a sideline out of bounds, they're one little chink in their armor, and it kind of mortalized them a little bit, maybe to everybody else. But after that, or during this season, I mean, they not only just played HSC to that one point, but they beat everybody else on their schedule, including beating the number one team in Ohio, the number one team in Kentucky, and then the 1 point loss to the number one team in Indiana. I mean, we had talked about how this was such a dynastic run. And we also talk about how, high school careers just end. And I, for one, did not expect the high school careers of Layla Abdurraqib and Jayla Lampley, particularly those two kids that will be Indiana All-Stars, to end so suddenly. And that's gut-wrenching. And it is. But when you are at the top, I mean, you earn that. And everybody shoots for you. It's really difficult to do it. I mean, and just to put that in relativity, like what they did in just losing the one game to George Rogers Clark last year and then the one game to HSC and now LN. I mean, what they were asked to do from a 2-year dynasty perspective was very difficult. And they say it's really hard to beat a team 3 times. Well, how about beat a team 6 times in LN? And they couldn't do it. So,
yep.
That's just my thought on that. But I think it doesn't necessarily. I mean, they're going to be really good next year because they have one of the best players in the world still on their roster. But it does just remind us that it can just end.
Yeah. Speaking of things that just end, I mean, just in an instant, we saw what happened last night with Pike and Plainfield. I don't know why I almost said Avon. Then Red Devils come back tonight. I think the hardest thing is to regroup after a win like that. They come back, they get the win over Avon 69-61. Clark was texting me video or updates throughout the game, just a back and forth battle there. Pike looked like they had it in the bag, and then Avon almost did to them what they did to Avon earlier in the season and coming back. And right now we're joined by Alonna Devine and Komari Booker. Komari, of course, was the hero in last night's game. Alonna's having a phenomenal season as well. Girls, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing good.
I'm doing great. Congratulations on the sectional championship. Just what have these past 24, 48 hours been for you guys?
You want to go?
Yeah. It's been very exciting. We came together as a team, after all the injuries we have had. So it's very, it's good. But yeah, it's very good.
It's exciting. We knew that both games were tough, and we knew they were going to be tough. But to be able to be the team that came out on top just shows a lot. So, yeah, it's exciting.
Komari, you're sideways.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
So that's okay. You hit a buzzer beater. You can come out sideways or upside down, whatever you want to do, kid. Let's start with last night and that final play. We heard from Kyle. Danny was breaking down film as well. Let's hear from you two. What was it like in the moment, that play to win the game?
It felt very, at first, like during the halftime, we went in the locker room. Our coach, he had talked to us and we had a conversation. He got on us because he knew that we were better than what we were playing like the first two halves. So we had to come together as a team and just play together and just have the confidence to finish the game off. And I think we did that very well. And we started to be disciplined at the end of the game. And that meant a lot because in that moment, it was a big moment. Definitely. We all needed that.
For me, it was nothing new to us. We played against Avon first game, and we've came back from big deficits like that. So just to be able to stay composed throughout the whole game and just keep lifting your teammates up, letting them know we got this. We just have to be confident. And so the last play didn't go at all how it was supposed to be ran. She was not supposed to catch it on the block. We were trying to get the 3 at first, and then she took that away. But I mean, I'm grateful for the way it ended. So,
how many times have you guys watched that replay?
I've watched it like 50 times already.
Too many, and it's not the first time she's done it. So it's like it just gets crazier. Like you can do this multiple times. That lets her team have so much faith and confidence in her, and that's great.
So let's spin it ahead then to tonight. How did you get everything regrouped and make sure that wasn't the pinnacle of your season and that you came back and got the win tonight? What were those conversations like in the locker room, Alonna?
So we knew we were up by, it was 40-26 going into half, and I told them we can't settle because they're gonna fight hard. Like, it's Anaya Smith, she's a really good player. It's going to be her last game if she loses. So we know she's going to come out and she's going to fight. And that's exactly what she did. And they cut the lead down. So just to lift my teammates up and let them know, hey, even after they came back by this much, we still have the lead and we need to keep that. So we have to slow down and just be smart. And that's what we did. And we got the lead. I mean, we got the win. So.
Komari, how did you help everybody regroup? And then as Avon went on that run, how did you guys kind of keep things stable and keep it from spinning out of control?
I think it was more about taking our time, taking care of the ball. We had to focus on that more than anything because the refs were calling a lot of fouls, obviously. So we had to be disciplined enough to finish the game off, and I feel like we did that.
Komari, I'm actually just watching, and Alonna too. It looks like you guys both guarded Anaya tonight. I mean, was that switch or Komari, did you get the assignment or who had it? Alonna, what was the defensive matchup tonight?
Oh, I was supposed to be guarding her, but he's actually, we were supposed to be in 6. We were supposed to switch off. So
okay,
basically anybody was guarding her because we was in 6 the whole time. But mainly I had her, it was on the scouting report, so it was me. But we definitely switched off. He gave it to Alonna, and we was all switching. So definitely, yeah.
Komari, that's the question that I had. I mean, so that was one of the halftime adjustments that Keith implemented yesterday in the Plainfield game when you guys were down double digits. Was you came out and guarded Hannah Menser in the second half and held her to 4 points in the second half. I would have been surprised if it wasn't you that got the assignment. You have to love that, right? I mean, you get to go from Menser in one half and the very next day go to Anaya Smith. Just talk about you on the defensive side because everybody wants to talk about the play that you made on the offensive side, but talk about digging in with your back to the goal.
Well, definitely for me, I'm very long, so I have the advantage to just play straight up, and he uses that with me a lot. So he makes me guard the best player on every team. So I love that for me, but I definitely needed help. So I'm glad I got the help that I needed. And yeah, we finished the game off.
And Alonna, for you, I mean, your halftime adjustment in the Plainfield game last night, you came out in the second half and you were so much more aggressive off the bounce. I mean, you were just getting to your spot much of the same tonight? I mean, I know Keith really wanted you to kind of get downhill, but I'd assume that had to be part of the game plan, right? To get you going downhill.
Yeah, so I told myself in order to win the game for my team, that's what I had to do. And so that's what I came out and I did. And I kept attacking. I told myself, okay, if I attack right now and she comes up, I'm going to kick it to my big. But if she doesn't come up, I'm going to go up for the finish. And if I draw the foul, I'll hit the free throws. And so that was basically my game plan going into this game as well. Unfortunately, I had 2 fouls in the first quarter, so I had to sit a little for the second. But when I came out, I was aggressive, and I got to the free throw line a lot, and I was able to hit them for my team at a crucial time too, and that kept us with the lead.
And then a question for you both. This will be now the second time in as many years that you will play for a regional championship, or Pike will play for a regional championship. So just, I mean, what is it about the postseason with Pike, and you guys just keep finding a way to get these sectional championships?
I think it's more about coming together as a team. You know, we've had some downs, we had some ups, but like us coming together, like this is what we like to do. We like to come together, strong with each other, just like play as a team. Because if we don't got each other, we don't got nothing at all. So I feel like, yeah, that's how we are as a team, and we definitely came together tonight, and yesterday too. So.
For me, I wasn't here with them last year, so it was different because it's not a two-peat for me. I haven't won sectional since my freshman year, but I had a little extra motivation since I was playing at the school that I came from, and one of my accomplishments was to be able to, once I figured out that sectionals was at Ben Davis, one of my goals was to be able to cut the net down in Ben Davis, and that's what we did. And so it wasn't just for myself, it was also for my team as well, because I know how important it was to my teammates and my coach that we won sectionals again. And we didn't want that to be our seniors' last game, so we told them we were going to win this for them. And we want to make it to state, so that's what we're trying to do. We don't want the season to be over with yet. We're trying to fight and push so we can make it all the way.
Komari, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, how's the shoulder doing? I was there at Brownsburg when you got knocked around the first time. Is it okay?
Yes, actually, it actually motivated me to come back and do my job, because it made me feel like, you know, don't take things for granted, especially when you got it right in front of you. So I definitely had to come back.
And
my team, definitely. So
she came back off that injury even better. I was like, oh my God, you wouldn't even thought that she got hurt. Like, we've seen a different Booker than we've been seeing. Like, it's not different. Like, we all knew Booker had it, but she's been stepping up in crucial moments too. So we're all proud of her.
What do you think?
Stay there just for a second. That's an interesting thing, because so she's not the only one. Like Marley Jefferson in this entire season has just, I mean, I remember Keith just very casually like, hey, watch out for Jeffers this year. Like, she's really, really good. And then all of a sudden we're in attendance at a Homestead game and she gets a double-double. And we're like, okay, it's a double-double against Homestead. But she's been critical, right? Alonna, can you talk about her?
Yeah, she is very important to our team. And I try to let her know a lot, like how much we need her, how much of a key role she is to our team. She doesn't just score, she does the little things. She gets she averages a double-double. Like, she gets a whole bunch of rebounds for us. She's able to get us a lot of second chances, and she's just very aggressive. Like, she hasn't been playing for very long, but you wouldn't be able to tell just because of the way that she plays. She's very athletic, and she just has so much heart. She does not like losing. She wants to win every battle, and a lot of the times that's what she does.
Did you guys expect that from her? Because Keith's been pretty open. Like, she kind of came out of nowhere and really, I guess, a breakout season for her.
I did, because me and Marley worked out a lot together during preseason. Like, we would work out with adults and stuff. And so I just was able to see her in the gym a lot. And I would try to help her with the post guard, you know, coming off the screen, pick and roll. Like, a lot of the times when I'm attacking, I usually know like Booker or Marley is right there. Like, we have that connection. And so a lot of people were surprised, but I wasn't. I seen all the work she put in preseason, and it's showing during the season.
And then, Komari, one more for me for you. You heard Alonna mention that you've come back with a vengeance, and it's kind of unlocked something new in you. How would you describe that? And what is it about this little run? Is it just that appreciation for the playing time?
I would say that it's also like I don't know. After I got injured, after I dislocated my shoulder, it's just like I had a spark. Like I wanted to go on a run, like to state. So I just had to trust myself. I had to trust God, and I just had to go play. I didn't even care like how I felt. Like my arm was a little in pain yesterday, but I kept playing because I had to do it for my team, and my family and stuff. So I definitely had to play with my heart.
Good stuff. You still sore now, or were you able to ice it up after the game, feeling good? What was that?
I am sore actually.
We better let you get going and get that thing iced up. Well, thank you, Komari and Alonna, so much for joining us. Best of luck to you guys, and I'll probably be seeing you at practice.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Congrats, girls.
Thank you.
Komari
Hey, you know
Booker.
what's
Go ahead.
No, go ahead and
Komari
reset.
Booker and Alonna Devine from Pike joining us. Pike moves on. They will play Franklin Central in the regional championship.
You know what's interesting about Pike is so they win the sectional last year, lose to Plainfield in the regional. They go through, let's just frame this now. They go through Brownsburg and Avery Gordon. They go through Plainfield with Berkeley Williams and Anna Menser and company. And then they go through Anaya Smith. There isn't one team that's sitting in the regional round that had to do what they did. And so here they are. And the thought is that next year was their year. I mean, they don't have a senior on the right. They're not going to graduate. They return the entire basketball team. And by the way, their 29 class is nasty, like really, really good. Like there's 2 players at the top of that 29 class that will be immediate impact varsity contributors. And so the thought was that, here's Pike just doing this thing and moving along and moving it right. And then you got some teams in the South that we talked about earlier that lost. I mean, Pike might, on the strength of a deep postseason run this year and what they return next year, Hank, we might be watching the next year's number 1 team in the state. Like right now going into their run. And I'm not trying to put pressure on my friend Keith or
he's trying to fly under the radar, Dan, and you blow him up. He's not going to appreciate that.
And now it's going to go he's got to go the other way. But I don't think I'm wrong on that. Like, I don't think anybody wanted to play them this year. Plainfield certainly didn't want to play them.
They're in 2, I mean, the 4A South, it's wide open now.
Wide open.
Like Lawrence Central, it really did. Like, it felt like the cards were lining up, that things were stacking up for them again. Like there's a chance that they could avoid Franklin Central depending on how the draw went at semi-state and what happens obviously next weekend at regionals against Pike now. Yeah. If it was Pike, they've beaten Pike pretty handily twice during the season. I think that's, it's a tough matchup. And then otherwise you take your chances with Floyd Central, Bloomington South, Columbus North, whoever comes out of that South Quadrant, or Gibson Southern, take your chances with one of them. So it was, right. And now that they're out, it changes everything. And that sounds so dumb and cliche and basic, but it's true. And there's no other way to put it. Let's go ahead and bring on Richie Hall. Richie was up Sheridan way tonight, where he saw Kenzie Garner do a great many Kenzie Garner things. She drops 40 points, 20 in the first half, and then she outdueled Lanaya Wills, who finished with 29 points. Really impressive performance by Lanaya, but a great win for Sheridan, which moves on for a 54-47 win over Lapel in the sectional championship. They repeat and advance to face Lewis Cass, 19-6 Lewis Cass, coming off a win over Oak Hill in their sectional championship game. Richie, Kenzie Gardner, my goodness. Thoughts?
Yeah, she just played completely out of her mind. And she finished with 40 points, as you probably have already heard, but she didn't even know she had 40 points. She was just completely in the zone. She was making pretty much everything. You name it, she made it. It wasn't just lay-ins. It wasn't just, close jump shots. She made a couple of really incredible floaters. There was, at least one, stop, pop, shoot, and jump. And there's even like one kind of circus shot where she just kind of looked like she lobbed it over the basket and it just somehow went in. She was just doing anything and everything to score. It was pretty unbelievable to watch. And like I said, she didn't even know she had 40 points. She was just completely out of her mind.
Just an unbelievable. I'm looking at the scorebook that you tweeted out. Just an unbelievable performance, and it looked like, in following your tweets and some of the other updates from the game, it looked like Sheridan was pretty well in control for most of that game. Lapel made a little bit of a run there in the second half, and they were able to put it out.
Yeah, they led 19-9 after the first quarter, and then the second quarter they really didn't let anybody besides Lanaya do anything. Like Lanaya got her point. She scored 8 of the 10 points for Lapel in the second quarter. But Sheridan, of course, scored 15 points with Kenzie scoring 8 of them. And they had other players step up too. Like Cecilia Timmy had a couple of good jump shots. Nova Cross opened the second quarter with a 3. The only time it really kind of looked dicey for Sheridan was for most of the third quarter. Like I think they scored in the first couple minutes, but then Lapel didn't shut them out for like the last 6 minutes of the third quarter. And they saw a 15-point lead drop to 5 points. And at that point, it looked a little bit shaky. But then the fourth quarter, their defense toughened up, and Kenzie scored like the first 7 points of the quarter. And in the end, it feel like they had a little bit more breathing room. Lapel didn't go away to their credit. They kind of kept it around 8 to 10 points the last few minutes of the quarter. And, they had opportunities too to make some more, to cut into the lead a little bit more. But Sheridan's defense just really stepped up in the fourth quarter.
So did they talk at all? Do they have any idea what's ahead here with Lewis Cass?
No, in fact, I actually just found out they were going to play Lewis Cass, and I think they were talking like Oak Hill, and it's like, oh no, Lewis Cass, okay. Yeah, that's honestly, it's kind of one of the things we just don't not really know about. Like I see that, they won 19-6. They beat Eastern, Manchester, and Oak Hill to win their sectional. And some pretty good defensive performances. Like they held Eastern to 14 points in the first round, and averaged of 31.6 for the entire season. So, like I heard you guys talking, it's once you get to the regional, everybody's good, and there's going to be pretty much tough teams all the way through.
You've obviously followed Kenzie's career pretty closely here, Rich. Just what have you seen from her in terms of her development this year and just the strides that she's taken? I mean, just monster numbers every game, it seems like, and just such a phenomenal talent, that kid.
I was talking with someone after the game, and it kind of looks like she's just so cool out there. I mean, they might, just really cool, just really calm, but she just plays really smooth. I mean, she just really lets the game come to her. She doesn't, look like she's hurrying, or she looks like she's, tense, or ever gets a moment of panic. Like, like even when Lapel made its run during the third quarter, you just never got a sense of panic out of them. They were probably getting a little bit frustrated, but at the same time, they just always felt like, we're okay, we're fine, we just got to weather through the storm. And then she's just kind of one of those players where, that even if she's struggling a little bit, all she's got to do is just maybe get a basket or two in a couple of minutes, like, in a 1 minute, 2 minute span. And then you just kind of feel like, they'll be fine. And plus, you've got seniors on the team. Kenzie's a senior, Cecilia's a senior. Let me grab my roster really quick to see who else is a senior. Max Smith is a senior. Plus, you just got a lot of really good athletes too. They've had successful soccer teams over the past couple of years. So, these are girls. These are girls who by now know how to win, and they also know how to get through any little, fits and starts of adversity here or there in a game situation.
I guess I'm going to ask you. I mean, we already talked about it, but I guess I just need a little further information about the 40. Like, they scored 54. They scored 54 points tonight, and this is the root to the question, Richie. I mean, in every gym that I walk into, the best player has just somebody in their face that defends like Komari Booker, and there's a really good defender at Lapel named Lanai Wills. Like, I mean, was she getting? You said she played out of her mind. Like, did she guard her and she put 40 on like face guard and double teams and like ball screen doubles? Like, just talk a little bit more about her. Put that more in context for us.
Well, Kenzie scored the first 7 points of the game. I think she was at 12 points for the first quarter. I didn't really notice that they were guarding her. I mean, guarding her anymore or any less. But the thing is that if you try and, I guess it's just kind of watching Kenzie. It wasn't necessarily watching who was guarding her, because you just know what she's going to do.
Right.
They were trying, but I mean, I think it was just more, and they especially when Kenzie would get under the basket, everybody was just kind of collapsing around there. There were a lot of deflections, a lot of fights for loose balls and things like that. But they were trying to guard her. But I mean, like I said, she would just get inside the 3-point line, just stop, pop, boom. she would make the floater, maybe she had a little bit of, contested around her, but she was just making shots. She would, in fact, we were kind of thinking in the fourth quarter, we were just thinking, just drive to the basket. And it just didn't really, if they were trying to guard her, they were, but it just didn't really seem like you could guard her. She was just making everything. I don't know if the answer is your question or not, but
good stuff, Richie.
I'm kind of watching Kenzie, I'm not necessarily watching who's who's guarding her, but just sort of something you're just thinking, is there's just anything that she can't make.
Yeah. She gets in those modes, man, where she goes. Like, I watched her on stream, and obviously I saw her a couple times last year, but just watch her on stream. Like, she's just unbelievably talented. She's got so many tools in the bag too. It's fun to watch. I'm excited to see what she does at the next level, and it feels like maybe I'll have to research more on Lewis Cass, but it feels like there's a road back there for semi-state if this team plays to their potential.
Yeah, it does. I was kind of worried about where they were going to put Alexandria, because they're having an incredible season too. I think there's probably a little bit of relief that they don't have to worry about Alexandria for the regional. Of course, they'll have to face them at some point, but I think they'll be prepared for Alexandria. I think they're going to be prepared for anybody they played. They've won. Again, looking this up as I go,
they've won 22 in a row. Yeah,
22 straight games, and but for 3 points against Brebeuf, they'd be undefeated. There's. They've won they've won some close games. They won some dominating games. They've just pretty much won every way they can. And I wouldn't, I think they have just about as good a chance as any, against State. And I did tweet this out too, and I need to make sure I mentioned this. They need to consider Kenzie for All-State or
Indiana All-Stars.
Indiana All-Stars.
There's, I know it's difficult for two-way teams to get noticed because they're smaller teams, but just everything she's done in her career. Sheridan now has back-to-back sectional titles. Two back-to-back 21 seasons. I think they're 24-1, which I'm thinking might be a school record for wins this season. I think that the All-Star voters, they got to put aside the small school bias for one. I've watched Kenzie play. I know she's an all-star. Let's put it that way.
It's going to be interesting.
I'm sure
it's going to be interesting to see. Just that senior class is tough, but I think she's got a very compelling case for sure when you examine body work. But Richie, thank you so much for joining us, buddy. I'm sure I'll see you here sometime soon with HSC moving on, Sheridan moving on. I'll be in one of those places, and I'm sure we'll cross paths soon, brother.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Danny.
Take care.
See you, Richie.
Thanks for having me.
Richie Hall joining us, talking about Sheridan. Just running through some other scores here quick, Danny, as we wait, and we'll bring on Grace here in a few minutes. You have Hammond Central over Lake Central 30-26. You mentioned it last night that it felt like this is the first time in a while that Lake Central wasn't the favorite one of those games. Hammond Central pulled it out, so we'll have Grace on to talk about that. Valparaiso grinds out a win over Chesterton 33-26. That was a battle against their old coach, Candy Wilson, also a friend of the show.
That's right.
Candy was over there at Chesterton. They had a really talented player over there, Kennedy Bradley, at Chesterton. South Bend, Washington, they beat South Bend Riley 65-38. That game was a lot closer than that final score indicates. Like you and I were talking about it, they had to grind there a little bit, did South Bend, Washington, and they're really going to have to tighten that up if they're going to beat Warsaw in the regional next week, because Warsaw comes in guns blazing. They breezed through that sectional without much of a sweat. Northridge Snyder, we're going to have to wait for that on Monday. Same thing with Homestead Huntington North. The winner of that Homestead Huntington North game, by the way, will play the winner of Sectional 8. A couple others just to mention. McCutcheon moving on. Pendleton Heights ends their sectional drought. They hammered Mount Vernon, a young Mount Vernon team versus a very veteran Pendleton Heights team. But congratulations to Casey Warfel, Hupfer, Olivia Jones and company on their win. It's a long time coming for that group of girls, so happy to see them pull that one out. Franklin Central also ends their sectional drought with a win over Mooresville. No other real surprises here from what I can see. And then obviously Gibson Southern's overtime win over Reitz is one that'll grab attention as well.
Yeah, so on the left side, so 6 of the 8 are set on that left side. You had mentioned that. So Homestead and Northrop plays Snyder, right? We presume Homestead will advance, and that will finish it out. I think that's not a bad thing that South Bend, Washington had to grind it out. That will be the first thing I will tell you. I think they've probably won a ton of basketball games by running clock, and I think it's probably good for them to be in a dogfight. But that Warsaw game, okay, I just want to talk a little bit about it, okay? Like, yes, they beat Northridge. That I don't think that's much of a surprise. But Zartman in that basketball game literally ran to the corner with her face guard. And it was like watching a science experiment. It literally was like, we're going to take our leading scorer and best 3-point shooter. We're going to run her to the corner, and we're not going to throw her the basketball for an entire game. And we're going to try to play a 4-on-4. And then Winchester gets in, they call her Winnie up in Warsaw. Brooke Winchester gets in foul trouble. So then it's just Bricker and Neely. And Neely ends with a double-double, I think 12 points and 11 rebounds. But Jocelyn Bricker went 15 of 19 from the field, 4 or 5 from 3, and had 34 points. And they only got 7 from Bricker, and they didn't get much production from Winchester. It's so fascinating because I felt like I'm just kind of jokingly saying that it was like watching a science experiment, because that takes such bravery, one, for Warsaw to do that, a lot of trust in Bricker, and Zartman has to be willing to do it. Like, it's just crazy. I just watched the game on my phone when I was sitting at the sectional 8 game. I'm going to watch it with the sound and see, but it was crazy. It was crazy what they did.
Wanted to dive down too on some of the smaller schools. Lanesville advances with a 45-28 win over Eastern Pekin, whatever. How about this one though? South Knox had to grind out a 58-52 win over North Knox in a game that was very much in question and in jeopardy down to the end. And Danny, we talked about what's going to happen to South Knox. Is it going to be smooth sailing? You pointed out, obviously correctly, I think there's going to be a close call somewhere along the way. There's the first close call. I wasn't sure if it was going to come. I think they're going to have a tough battle in there in the regional, but those rivalry games, man. It's 58-52. But South Knox prevails, and they move on to the regional championship there. But my goodness, that thing right down to the wire. I was surprised there, not because North Knox isn't good. They're obviously a very good team, but just with how South Knox has won everything this year. I mean, aside from those 4A games, it hasn't been much of a sweat. And then the 3A game against, Evansville Central, it just hasn't been much of a sweat here down the stretch for them. They've just been taking care of business, putting teams away early and running away.
The Evansville Central game maybe loomed too with it took a little bit of late game, not heroics, but late game execution to pull that one out. One of the reasons why that's a cliche of, every champ has an early round scare is because sometimes those atmospheres really galvanize a team and then can just shoot you with more momentum to the right side. I think this is a very good thing for South Knox. I think that's the way that they're going to talk about it. I don't think they're any less of a basketball team. I think it says more, quite honestly, about the heart and the character within that North Knox locker room, that they weren't going to make it easy and roll over the sectional championship to their crosstown rival. So congrats to the North Knox team, but I think this will end up playing really well for South Knox. Because I think it's, the more they are in these games and have to make difficult decisions. Now that's twice in maybe 3 or 4 weeks where they've had to, Evansville Central now in North Knox, where they've had to make plays late in the basketball game. So I did just text Holly a congratulations. And I mean, it was just straight, like, thanks. Like, and good. Liked it.
Thanks. Good.
Thanks.
Great story.
Thanks. Yep.
Good stuff. All right, we're going to shift back up to Class 4A now, Danny. We're going to move over to the region, joined now by Grace Opinker. Grace was covering Hammond Central's 30-26 win over Lake Central. It's the first time in a few years that Lake Central's gone down in the sectional championship game. The first one in, 5 years since they've done that. Grace, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on the show tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for hopping on with us. So I'll start it open-ended. What happened tonight with Lake Central and Hammond?
It was a crazy game. Lake Central came out early. They had an 11-5 lead after the first quarter, and then the tables kind of turned. Lake Central's Vanessa Wimberly, she scored 4 points in the first quarter and then didn't score the remainder of the game. Hammond's defense on her, they kept double teaming her throughout the game. She was struggling to get the ball in the paint, they were struggling to get the ball in bounds when there were fouls. And then Hammond kind of just went on a run. Junior guard India Hutchinson had 10 points before halftime, just in the second quarter alone. So Lake Central had a 2-point advantage going into the half, and it was kind of a toss-up. And it really came down to the last 36 seconds of the game. LC was up 26-25. And then they had a 5-second violation from out of bounds. Hammond got the ball back. Layla Hart, a junior guard, she came in, splashed a 3-pointer to give them the 28-26 lead. And then once Hammond regained possession of the ball, India Hutchinson was fouled, scored 2 free throws, and finished off with a 30-26 win, which is actually the first in the program's history, because I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Hammond Central opened in 2020 because 3 schools in Hammond, Clark, Hammond High, and Gavitt, had consolidated to Hammond Central. So it was a big win for them tonight, especially to knock down the reigning semi-state champions from Northwest Indiana.
Thanks for being on tonight, Grace. Can you dive a little deeper with our audience on India Hutchinson? I mean, this is one of the best players in the 2026 class. She is absolutely a next level, Division I recruit. But she's in Northwest Indiana, and some people know her maybe from the club circuit or whatever. But I mean, we didn't follow her week to week the way that we did some of the other names. So I'll just give you an open mic, let you talk to our audience about India Hutchinson, because she's really good, right?
Yes. Their head coach, Okisha Howard, kind of describes her as, I can put her at any position on the court and she's going to excel. If she's not scoring, she's their number one defender. And she had, I think, 3 steals tonight. She had, let me check, 3 rebounds. And then in addition to her 14 points, I mean, she's just up and down the court. She does not get tired. And I think that is what helped Hammond tonight. They held their stamina all throughout the game, and they didn't get defeated when they were down initially. And it's definitely in part because India helps carry her team.
And on the other side of things, Lake Central. So, his brother Chris Huppenthal won a sectional championship on the Hamilton Southeastern staff, but Joe Huppenthal's had a ton of success, and his name, because of Chris down here, we've followed his career, and he's had Lake Central knocking on the door and always advancing through the sectional, and he's widely regarded as one of the best coaches. We kind of talked about it last week about how they, even with all-star candidates like Krieger and Wimberly on the team, that they might not even be the favorite in this game. Would Lake Central, would they agree with that? Did they lean into an underdog role in this, or did they feel like they were the alpha?
So Lake Central and Hammond did play earlier in the season, and Hammond had beat them by 5 to 7 points. And so I think there was speculation that tables would turn tonight, because maybe there's rumors Hammond Central, they just play street ball. And Howard was telling me about that after the game. Everyone thinks that my team just plays street ball, but we are able to play organized ball. And so because of that, I think there was speculation that Lake Central maybe had a bad game against them earlier in the season, and they were going to bounce back and kind of walk through that win. And that just wasn't the case tonight.
And can you help punctuate the careers of Vanessa Wimberly and Krieger and maybe this run with Lake Central, and just talk about it from being there in the NWI area?
Yeah, of course. Vanessa has been on Lake Central's varsity team the past 4 years. She was starting a little bit her freshman year, but really morphed into more of a starting role her sophomore year. She guided them to the state title last year, obviously with former Anaya Bishop, and they had a couple other seniors at the time who've since graduated. So kind of coming into this year, it was a big difference. She was stepping into more of a leadership role because last year, Lake Central, none of their players averaged more than 10 points a game. So they were really big on relying on the team to kind of spread out the points across the board and not just one player. So coming into this year, when I spoke with her preseason, she said it was a big difference knowing she had more weight on her shoulder to perform well for her team, in addition to senior Ayla Krieger. And I think what hurt them tonight is Vanessa wasn't able to get her shots down as she normally would, because she was normally averaging 15.2 points per game, right behind Ayla, who was averaging 15.3 points per game.
Grace, by the way, has a great feature on Vanessa up on NWI.com from a couple weeks ago. Want to interject that is a worthwhile read. Danny, go ahead.
Oh boy, gotta plug it, Hank. Before I throw it back to Hank, I want to ask you as we spin this forward into the regional. You had referenced how Hammond Central beat Lake Central, and they had early in the season, they had the rematch in the sectional championship. Now Hammond Central advances. They validate the regular season win. And then you look at they play Valpo and Lily Barnes. And then you look back on December 21st, and guess what? Hammond Central beat Valpo by 3. Okay. So talk about that game. Talk about that matchup. We can get more granular as the week goes, granular with that as the week goes on. But first reaction?
I think it's going to be another tough matchup. In my opinion, I feel like it's going to be a similar thing. I think people are going to assume that Valpo might be more disciplined and have the upper hand, but as Hammond proved us tonight, they can play organized and they can play disciplined. So I think it's definitely going to be another close game. I mean, Valpo has Lillian Barnes, so she obviously has more height than Wimberly. I don't know if that might be more difficult for Hammond when they're trying to stop her from putting shots down. And I know Valpo has a couple other players who have some height. So I don't know if that height advantage maybe worked for Hammond a little more tonight and if that's going to change going into the regional. But overall, I think it's going to be another close game.
Good stuff, Grace. Well, thank you so much for hopping on with us. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon to have your insight on previewing regionals and that. So we'll be in touch. Thanks again for jumping on with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I will be in touch with the both of you soon.
Awesome.
Cool.
Take care.
Thanks, Grace.
Yep. Bye-bye.
So we'll go from the very – go ahead, Danny.
Hammond Central might be in the semi-state.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you had said that sentence, Halloween, of course. I mean, the season's just starting, but even Christmas. I've been like, no, they're not. What are you talking about? Okay.
Cool, Danny.
But they play a basketball team that they've already beaten this season, and they are physical. They are tough. I am telling you guys, India Hutchinson is really good. And I'm basing that on my own eyes. I'm basing that on statistics, but I'm also basing that on what college coaches say about her. Like, they love this kid. Left-handed, super aggressive. And I know this because people ask me about it all the time. I know that she is not a familiar name down here in Indianapolis, and everyone's going to look at it and say, well, they play Valpo and Lily Barnes eventually. It could very easily be India Hutchinson. Pay attention, okay? Pay attention to this on Saturday because they could be kind of this, and it's not a Cinderella thing because the resume stacks up as a semi-state team based on the teams that they've beaten. But they're going to be this surprise. Like, for example, like McCutcheon. Like, if McCutcheon goes on, yeah, with the schedule and all that, we get it, okay? But I don't think anybody would be surprised because they have Lily. Yeah. Same thing with Hammond Central. Nobody should be surprised because they have India Hutchinson. She's playing that well this season.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into them to drill down. And I mean, for me, just looking at it, I mean, it's Lake Central, and since I've been here, I'm accustomed to Joe getting them to semi-state. They beat South Bend, Washington a couple years ago when they were at the height of their powers. They knocked them off again last year in the regional to get there, and then they beat both Homestead and Noblesville, two super talented teams, to get to the state championship game where they lost to LC. I mean, just it's such a powerhouse. And you're right though. I mean, Hammond Central, as I look at their resume now, like they've beaten some quality teams there, including Lake Central. They lost to Southern Washington, but if supplemented that, they've played Lawrence North. So we'll see. They've beaten Marquette Catholic. We're gonna go though, Danny, from the northwest side of the state to whatever side of the state Kyle's on the south end.
Soak. It's the Soak hour. Let's go.
It wouldn't be a show if we didn't have Kyle Sokeland on late at the latest hour possible, because he talks quick, and that means that I can get off sooner and go right again. Kyle, you had a great game tonight. Gibson Southern 47, Evansville Reitz 41 in overtime.
Well, he's easier to spell it, right?
Thank you. Wait, I did?
Reitz, yep.
If I would have misspelled that and it wasn't shtick, I would have felt like a dummy.
You've done it actually so many times that people would have just thought you were kidding.
You're right. It's a bit, the dumbest bit that I have, the most disrespectful bit, I suppose. Gibson Southern, though, I mean, they find ways to win. Like it looked like as I was following your timeline, like maybe things were in peril. They missed a couple free throws at the end of regulation, right? That allowed the game to get to overtime. And yet here they are, they find a way and they're in regionals again.
Yeah, it was gosh, they were down at least 10 in the third quarter and for a good chunk of the second quarter because, I mean, they were frustrated. I mean, Gabby Spink used the word frazzled, but what I'd say is they never lost confidence because that team, that group, if they needed to play, gosh, they found a way to get it. Because, I mean, Spink had 20 points. Schnauz could not hit anything from anywhere and still had a double-double because she got to the free throw line a bunch. And then Lauren Adamson, of all people, hits a three to go up 2 possessions in the first couple minutes of overtime. So I'm not done with my story, but that's pretty much the crux of it is this program is just a bunch of winners that finds a way.
And I mean, it's like the three of us have been talking about on your various appearances on the show. It's just who's going to step up alongside the big two of Schnauz and Spink, and they find the answer again tonight. And it's just the least expected person possible, it sounds like.
Well, I mean, I looked at the numbers. She's a 36% three-point shooter this season, but when I asked her how confident she was, she gave me a weird look like I think her quote was, "I've missed enough threes this week. The next one had to go in."
Wow, good for her.
So, but I think her teammates had all the confidence in the world because I know Lauren, she's a talented athlete, very good softball player, but she had just been working so hard in the gym to give them something extra on the perimeter and hit 1 3 tonight, and it was the biggest one of the season.
Were you surprised by how well Reitz hung with Gibson Southern?
A little bit, but I was telling people and thinking before the game that if they had a chance, the one way to do it is just to make a mess of this game, pressure the heck out of Gibson Southern, and they did with the 2-3 zone that kind of extended towards half court almost because they double team Spink like anywhere. Once she crossed half court, they were double teaming her, and they just needed someone to hit a few shots to get them into the game. And Bailey hit some bombs in that first half. She was hitting from the volleyball line at one point. Like she I think she had 20 points but she didn't score after the third quarter, which is when Gibson Southern kind of clamped down and finally got back in the game.
It's interesting. So I was wrong. I talked about how to, expect a carryover, and Paige Schnauz is going to shoot the ball really well and pull Khalees Mitchell out of the paint, and it's going to, central third ball screen, and Gabby's going to have driving lanes, and that just didn't play out. I mean, it sounds like from your story, from here listening to you, that didn't play out. So what adjustments were made when Paige wasn't making shots? Like, did she go and sit on the block? And you said she got to the foul line, so she must have had opportunities at the rim. Soak, right?
Yeah, I mean, most of the game she was spent inside. I mean, Reitz, to their credit, just were fronting her. They were literally throwing 2-3 bodies at her if she got the ball anywhere near the bucket. I mean, credit to Reitz because they knew. I don't know if this was their one moment because they've got quite a bit coming back, but this was on their home floor. This was their first time in a long time to truly think they could win, and they threw literally anybody and everybody at the two best players for Gibson Southern. I think 2 guards fouled out for Reitz. Another one had 4 fouls. Like they were literally trying their darndest to find a way to pull that game out. and I think they just ran out of bodies toward the end.
And so Gibson Southern, it sets up the showdown with Floyd Central, and through all of this mess, I think we got the matchup that we thought we were going to get, right, Soak? I mean, I know I was kind of on the right. I kind of thought Reitz was going to get him, but everybody else, yourself included, this is what we thought was going to happen in the regional, correct?
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, there was times this season where Gibson Southern fell off, and I think that was just through injuries and losing those 2 starters from last year. And even Coach Brasher admitted, like, they just had to work through some stuff at various points. But when the eye on the prize was always this week, and if they could be playing their best, and I don't know if you can qualify this week as their best, but it was their best when it mattered, which is the end of games and just clutch time. Now, if you ask them, the players were like, "Oh, we had a chip on our shoulder, and no one thought we could do it." That's nonsense.
I was on the Gibson Southern bandwagon before it was cool, by the way.
I picked them as a favorite, but if you ask Gabby Smink, no one picked them in any single game this season.
She doesn't read any of her stuff.
They can link on to that.
They can.
So,
but I thought this was a matchup because if Gibson Southern played at their best, they were the best team in the field.
But I mean, I get it, okay? But they haven't played their best. That's the story that every single time, we come on and we start talking about Gibson Southern, it's, they found a way to win in the end, or they made a play on the spin out with Schnaus, or they found a way to get to the free throw line, or they just, the championship medal and the pedigree and all of that. When does this catch up with them? I mean, you can't not play well for an entire basketball tournament and expect to be a game bridge, right, Kyle?
I mean, you're right.
Does it catch up with them at Floyd Central?
I thought this week it might have caught up to them just because they had the toughest draw possible. They had to face North, Castle, who probably had the best 1 through 5 in the sectional lineup. Reitz on their home floor with a defensive game plan that just made it a mess. I mean, I thought you asked me to win 3 games would be really tough. Maybe one game at a time, I would pick them each time. But just 3 games in 4 nights, maybe it catches up to them next weekend because I saw Floyd briefly back in December. I know they're very good. Maybe it catches up to them the week after against whoever comes from that semi-state, even though clearly this tonight showed that anything can happen, and it's been a mess already in 4A.
The other side to that, though, Danny, is like if you're Gibson Southern, you're in regional despite not playing your best game yet. So there are things you can tighten up, and know that there's another level that you can unlock. Like that's how I would approach it, and that's how I personally that's how I look at it. Is like there's an opportunity for them now to unlock that next level, and if they do, I mean, sky's the limit. And like Kyle said, I mean, geez Louise, after tonight, everything's in play. Really, with LC going
I was following
down.
your stuff all night and showing coaches and other people after the game, like, what was it? Lawrence Central lost. HSC had a game. Even in 3A, Silver Creek lost.
Yep.
Gosh, who knows what else happened?
South Knox was in a dogfight.
Yes, I was watching that game. Don't tell the Gibson Southern people, but I had it on my computer during the first half. Just because I thought.
Don't tell the Gibson Southern people.
Yeah,
they're not watching. It's fine. Did you catch the ending of that game? How did South Knox pull that thing out?
Gosh, it was a 3-point game, I think, with 2 minutes left. When I messaged you, maybe I can't remember the score, but I just feel like North Knox ran out of gas, and South Knox just went down and made a play every time. They have 4 or 5 girls that can just score the ball. I mean, I know Ella Bobe, I think at 25 is what I saw correctly. So she had another night. But again, I just kept thinking it's at North Knox. They play defense. There's just something different about them in the postseason too. Usually that South Knox had to get over that hill again. Yeah,
it's fitting that's the one that they had to go through to get there. Kyle, one of the game that I wanted to talk with you about before we get you out of here, that Central Memorial game. Central grinds out the 56-49 win, so they move on. Just any thoughts, or have you heard anything from Treasure, whoever was down there for you guys?
Yeah, Treasure was there. sounded like Central not had it in hand the entire time, but once they got through to the second half, they were just the deeper team. I mean, Memorial, to their credit, played a lot better than I'd seen them throughout various points of the season. But I just think the better team won. I mean, Maddie Shirley, Olivia Heil had a nice night. And the team we thought was going to make it to the second weekend did. So, I mean, there's not much else to say other than finally we don't even get the matchup we thought we would because Corydon beat Silver Creek by 14.
Gordon's dangerous. Like they're kind of that under the radar team, at least in my circle, myself and I. It seems like they're kind of under the radar, but that feels like a dangerous team. That's going to be a really interesting matchup between them and Central.
I just hope it's at Boonville so I can stay close.
It won't be. It'll be at, I don't know.
It'll be at Decatur.
Exactly. They'll bring them up here. They'll send the interior teams down there. We'll get like HSE and Homestead up in like, I don't know, Gary or something. Anything they can do to make it fun and interesting. Don't tempt them with a bad idea, as I say.
Do either of you guys know when the sites are drawn?
Well, some of the were their games postponed to Monday?
Yeah,
there are a handful of games postponed to Monday, but they're
So
both
are
for
we
the
gonna have to wait until
area.
Monday?
In 4A, we have 14 of the six. We have 14 of the Sweet 16 in 4A. I don't know what
I would assume we'll wait till Monday, although you could figure it out now because you're going to get a team from the Fort Wayne area playing a team from Hamilton County and a team from Lafayette. So, I mean, that kind of solves itself, but I don't know further down the line how that impacts things. But I'm assuming that
I'd imagine by tomorrow at the earliest, or maybe even Monday, just because they want every single team possible to know.
Yeah. Kyle will actually know by tonight, but he's not going to share it with anybody because he's a jerk.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, anything to make your life tougher.
I know. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us, buddy. We'll probably have you on this week to talk regionals, and because it wouldn't be a show without you.
No, again, always a pleasure, guys.
Thanks. That was really dripping with sincerity. We'll talk to you soon. Kyle Sokeland joins us. I think he's getting tired of us, Danny.
I know.
Let's
right when he first came on, he was already shaking his head.
Well, I didn't want to mess up the name in front of him again. I just get so much grief from you people for saying the name of that thing wrong, that school wrong, and it just, it's hurtful. And after a while, you stop taking chances. Couple things, Danny, because I got to get out of here because I got to write. Let's talk about Sectional 8 in the game that we saw.
Yeah, let's do it.
You mentioned at the top that nobody expected, very few people expected Westfield to win. I would say very few people also were expecting that to be a close game. When you think about it and look at it, and this is what I wrote in my story, that's why Westfield was so dangerous and able to beat Noblesville, is because there was no pressure on them. They were able to play free and easy and confident. And from the outset, they were confident. And as the game kept going, and it just like every time HSE did something positive, Westfield found a way to answer. Or they found a way to dodge a bullet with a missed shot and then come back down and hit someone on the other end. Both teams were missing chances one way and the other, but with Westfield getting that lead early, which you mentioned yesterday as being just so impaired to their chances, they just kept going and going. And then as the game progressed, it was just false start after false start for HSE, where the crowd would kind of get into it. There was that pass where Keke Holman's on her butt and she flips it up to Maya Makaluski, and Makaluski goes coast to coast and hits the layup, and the crowd's going crazy. Okay, this is it. And then Westfield gets a foul, and they get to the line, and they hit it. And it just time after time after time. And even in the final minute when it's a 2-possession game, it's like, okay, for whatever reason, something tells me Westfield's going to hit a 3, do something to find a way to keep this thing interesting and maybe send it to overtime. But credit to HSE for finally breaking through. And I think that we saw tonight things that we've only seen in spurts from them in years past, and that being physicality and just handling it and playing through it. And then especially on the defensive end, like they were making plays that we didn't always see from them, honestly. Like they were chasing down balls, they were deflecting passes, they were interrupting passing lanes, like just all these little things. And one last thing before I throw it over to you, I'll put it in a notebook probably tomorrow, but Ant Green talking about the press. I think we pointed out early, they started to press. It wasn't super effective, but it did come into play later in the game. And Ant said, I was mad that we were down and I knew we had to win. So she just started motioning Keke Holman over and was like, let's do it. Sat was on board with it, I suppose, and they went for it. They just started pressing. And like I said, it took a little bit for it to get effective, but it really started going. And I think we kind of saw that in the cumulative effect of tired legs on Westfield after having to fight so hard to beat Noblesville and hold them off kind of come into play a little bit down the stretch. But just such an impressive performance by both sides. And on HSC, it was cool to see them finally prevail in a spot after watching them lose in just such heartbreaking fashion the past couple of years.
Yeah, congratulations to HSC. This is the first sectional title that HSC has won since Sydney Parrish was on the roster. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even her senior year, okay? She's in her, like, what seems like her 11th year at IU now. It's been a minute before they've won it. And so they have won it. Proverbial monkey, like you said, is off their back, okay? The first place I go on Sectional 8 is someplace I haven't gone yet with any of this. I thought the HSC crowd was really, really instrumental and good tonight. I thought their timing in urging their kids to get their team to get stops, I thought played a difference. And the reason why I say that isn't because I felt like it got loud in there. It was because you could visibly see kids like Keke Holman and Maya Makaluski playing to the crowd, and they responded to the crowd noise. It was loud. I want to commend the HSC faithful, because I thought you pulled them along the tracks tonight when it was looking dark at times. From the game flow perspective, you're right. You went exactly where I was going to go. When Westfield gets the lead, it just changes everything. They can they're going to have to extend HSC off the pack line. They can stay in the pack line and switch everything. They just run their continuities to death, and they wait for you to make a mistake. Somebody said to me tonight, they did it against Noblesville. They did it tonight against HSC. Somebody said that they use your aggressive defense against you. They wait for you to make a gamble. You're talking about how they're jumping lanes. If you do that carelessly, you're going to get a backdoor. You're going to give up a layup. If you switch everything, you're eventually going to get, your price in this instance on Holman, and they were throwing it in and trying to get really effective there. Westfield was really, really good in the first half. But I think you saw a postseason award campaign being put on by Maya. I think she was just really good tonight, but that's an unoriginal take. When you have a kid like Maya in a game that they're down 12 and then they're down 9 and then they're down 7 and 5, and she's just trading punches with Westfield, I felt like. And I don't know if I leaned to the right or to the left of me and said this. I think I leaned over to you. They're going to need somebody to come in and drop a haymaker and have a big knockout punch. And you had mentioned her name earlier, and you talked about on the defensive end, but Ant Green hit a 3 tonight, and the building the building unfolded. Okay.
That was too, like, that was at the end. That was like the third start where it's like, okay, here they come, the third start. And like you said, I mean, the place goes bananas, bananas. And again, it gets back to the thing that we've been talking about HSC all year, is just the confidence that they have in these other kids to make plays, and the confidence that they instill in them to take those shots. And Ant talked about it. She's very candid. Like, just, she says they didn't run the play right, but I was open and I was like, I'm going to pull it. I was confident. It felt good when I shot it and it went in. I mean, that's some Lauren Bear energy right there last night, when she's like, well, I was off balance, but I hit the one before that, so I figured I'd try again and bang. And I mean, that's the game. That wasn't the game right there. It was that play, and then Westfield comes down, and to your point, to talking about their response, just every time that HSC did something, it was just a slow, methodical possession. Like you and I were talking about it. They just calmly passed it around, and they got their look. They got it inside. They got to the line. They did whatever they needed to get there. But on that sequence, they get to the line, and they miss the free throws. They come up empty, and I think you leaned over to me, and you're like, okay, this is it. And HSC capitalized. Yeah.
And Satterfield and Huppenthal, after the game on the floor when they were cutting nets, and we had a very casual conversation, I mentioned that Ant Green 3. And Huppenthal's response to that is that kid doesn't feel pressure. Like that kid just doesn't feel it at all, and just has stepped up and made big shots. Remember, she had a big 3 earlier in the year against Lawrence Central at a critical point too, except that one was really early in the basketball game. But again, also, I pointed it out on Tuesday night when they came out of they had an ATO situation, and Satterfield called a play for Brindley. They did it again tonight. Satterfield called a timeout, and they went to Brindley like for 2 consecutive possessions. So We saw it at the end in Lawrence North and going to Brindley. We saw it in a critical point for a 3-pointer. They went to Brindley in the Fishers game on Tuesday night. And then tonight in an ATO situation when they were looking to extend their lead in the fourth quarter, they went to Brindley again and she delivered. So, you can rely on Maya. She did a great job tonight of just being aggressive. I don't think she had a 3 p.m. tonight. I think she did all of her damage at the free throw line.
I didn't even think about that.
And she was attacking off on the deck. Okay. But that's contagious because guess who else was attacking off the bounce? Kayla Stidham. I don't think Kayla Stidham had a 3 tonight either. And they beat Westfield without a 3 from Kayla Stidham and McLusky. Both of them have clips and both of them can spin it. And I think that says a lot to the character of HSC and how they can win games in different ways. But tonight also with those kids, after that Ant Green 3, Keke Holman got a steal and a layup in transition. Maya got 2 steals and layups in transition, and they were doing it with the defensive side. And it wasn't like, hey, they're jumping a passing lane because they were trapping. Some of these were just picks. Like they just they were just there was a theft at half court, and they would just go and lay it in. So HSC, that's just another early round scare, but Westfield can do it to you. And
they were so much better than I thought they were. Like
me too.
Like so much better. And I say that in the highest terms because I thought pretty like we talked about it before. I wrote about it too. Like this is a dangerous team potentially. It just got a tough draw, but man, I mean tonight I figured they were going to keep it close. Like I had a feeling that was what's going to happen. Did I expect them to lead as much of the games they did? No, I did not. And that's just because HSC's that good. But man, just they're bought in. That's the thing that we keep going back to. They're bought into what Kelsey Steele wants to do, and they just run it beautifully.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, and like he said, everybody made plays for them on Westfield too. Early on, like it's just everybody. They were popping threes, finding those backdoor looks. It was really impressive. It just your legs run out, and they made just enough mistakes that got them.
No, then I mean it's the number one team. And Westfield too, I mean, we talked about the early lead and being able to stay on pack line and being able to run your continuities. When they didn't get the lead, I mean, you saw the body language change, how high they were starting their offense. Those things, as the game progressed, I thought HSC started to make them uncomfortable. I get the sense that Westfield, when they were up like 9 or 10, okay, it felt like 9 or 10, okay. When HSC was up 5 late in that game, and you have a defensive-minded basketball team like Westfield, who the narrative all year has been, can they score enough? To me, it felt like 15. Like when they took the 5-point lead, I was like, this is going to be really hard for them to overcome. I did not ever say that to myself when HSC was down 10. I talked to Maya after the game. Maya said the same thing. She's like, we were cool. Like we were good. We felt really strong that we were going to make a run. We just needed to extend the run. Like really smart comments. But HSC moves on.
Mm-hmm. I'll have a story later today as it's after midnight. I'll probably write after the show, but just special moment with Maya and her older sister Riley after the game, and Maya talking about what it meant to do that with her sister in attendance, and then too elaborating on our conversation last night with Kelsey and just what's made this group so special to be around. Some more cool stories for her. And I think after the game she said that they sat in the locker room together and just went around and just shared some of their favorite stories. And I also saw the video of when she revealed that she's having twins. It was very wholesome, very cute as promised. Just a cool moment though. And just such an impressive run for them. I know that it ended a win short than what they'd hoped for, but just cannot say enough about what they did and just how impressive that was.
Give me a little latitude on this because I don't want to say overly critical, but I was one of the people that are like, there's a bunch of people that didn't think they had a chance. I said it to Kelsey, staring straight through the computer screen that I was one of them. Okay. When all is said and done, I mean, recency bias would tell you that you're going to think about your season and think about how it ends. But after a few days or after a few weeks, you start to really kind of link on to the highs. Okay. Let's not forget that 24 hours prior in the same spot, I said this to a Westfield parent that I have a ton of respect for, as actually Kristen Crockett is who I said it to. So she's been sitting in those sectional games, meaningful sectional games with her 2 daughters for, what seems like almost 7 or 8 years. Okay. And I know there was some overlap there. That's why I say 7 or 8. Okay. But they'll remember the high from Friday night. I mean, and that's how they should be remembered, as, taking down one of the best players to ever play team sports in that county, in Meredith Tipner. And so Westfield has a lot to hang their head high. I think this is something that they can use as momentum to kind of build into next year. But they were impressive in Sectional 8 this year. I know they don't have a piece of the net to show for it. But it's ingrained in all of our minds. We were there. We saw it. So congratulations to the Westfield Shamrocks for making that super entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna start wrapping up here, but regional sites are out. We'll have those posted here on IndyStar.com soon. But just real quickly, Danny, some ones of note: Warsaw, South Bend, and Hammond Central Valpo are both going to LaPorte, as predicted. HSE Homestead sectional winner, McCutcheon, Fort Wayne, Northridge sectional winner, all going to Marion. On the south side, just keeping it around Indy area, Lawrence North, Pendleton Heights, Pike, Franklin Central, all going to Decatur Central. Monrovia and Cathedral, both of them moved through from around here, are going out to Greencastle. Lanesville, South Knox will be down in Charlestown. They got the 4 and the 7 p.m. start. Danville and Roncalli are also going to Southmont with the 4 p.m. start. Boonville, as Kyle Sokeland hoped for, Corden Central, Evansville Central, Floyd Central, Gibson Southern over there in Boonville. So those are out. Those are finalized. I'm sure that there's more that Danny and I are going to want to get to. Is there anything more pressing that you wanted to touch on tonight?
I don't think so. I think we're gonna watch some film. We're gonna dive down. I know that we've already talked to a bunch of people that are gonna help us preview these regional matchups, because there is some very compelling.
There are so many good ones.
Compelling matchups.
Like, I wish there were a weekend later, honestly, but then it's the doubleheader thing, and the doubleheader thing sucks. And now we get them one off, and we're going to see teams best on best at full strength and full energy and full rest. So it's going to be a really fun weekend next Saturday. We're planning to split these off into 2 shows. We're going to do a 4A, 3A show, I think, and then a 2A Class A show. We might even split it down into, might split off 4A onto its own thing, depending. But like Danny said, those conversations are already happening. We're already starting to line up guests. We're going to go deep on everything. Statewide, big, small school, in the area, north, south, east, and west. So we're going to have this thing covered to cover. I'm going to have plenty of coverage up on IndyStar.com. We'll have 2 stories up tomorrow, another one starting to the regional stuff on Monday. Some features and some other fun things. Danny's going to be all over the place too. I'm ready to get it started, buddy. Well,
Sweet 16, 64 teams left, 16 in each class.
Can't wait for it. We thank you all so much for watching. For Danny Rago, my name is Brian Henson. We will be back with you here in a couple days.